Hello all, Rayos the Hermit here, broadcasting live from my Hermit Cove on a moderately snowy Wednesday morning. News, I guess. First, okay, I'm playing. This is my second to last stream. It's not because I'm getting a job. There's nothing that fortuitous, but it's just that these streams and videos are not really. I gave it the old college try, but not really getting too much traction, and I'd rather spend that time working on actual art and writing type stuff. So after this Friday, that will be it for this whole. I lost my job, so now I'm finally watched my YouTube watch later list or whatever I called it. But yeah, finishing out. This video out sugar, and then Friday will be the last day. But just putting it out there. Let me clean my nose. Okay, let me actually.
Good direction.
Alrighty, so where we last left off on the OTR Food and Histories, the worst story in food history. Sugar destroyed everything. When we last left off on that, sugar had just finished its ascendancy to a staple and become a kind of industrialized product. I mean, as industrialized as you can get in the pre-industrial world. And of course, due to the labor-intensive production process of sugar, has led to a widespread adoption of slave labor, which is what we're about to get into, I think. So, without further ado, let's get back to it's Madeira.
In the early 15th century, the Portuguese came up with a plan to break the Venetian sugar monopoly. Off the coast in the Atlantic, they discovered two uninhabited islands, so they decided to turn them both into self-contained factories, growing, processing, and exporting sugar. The first they'd call São Miguel, 760 square kilometers of lush terrain so abundant that today it's nicknamed the Green Island in the middle of the Azores. By the 1430s, waves of noblemen had arrived bringing prisoners to do the labor, but after a few failed harvests, it was clear that the climate was just a little bit too cold, so instead focus would turn to the south, to the island of Madeira. Now there, southwest of Portugal and 500 kilometers off the coast of Morocco, sugarcane would thrive. And all across Europe, this was cause for relief and celebration. With a steady supply of sugar, the Portuguese could finally undercut Venetian prices, and soon enough, a new economy would take shape, with importers and distributors from Antwerp to London taking a cut of the profits. And to keep the good times rolling, well, they'd promote sugar to the general public for the very first time, and we see the beginning of the sweets and desserts that we all know today.
All right.
Anyway, with more demand
Cool,
came the
I
need
guess.
to increase production, but the Portuguese had run out of prisoners to do the actual work.
Yeah.
So they started raiding the
This is less
African
cool.
mainland, capturing a few dozen Moroccan Berbers, then a few dozen more, then thousands. The African slaves were made to dig canals to increase the size of the plantations. Before long, there were 2,100 kilometers of waterways that would turn Madeira into a sugar-growing machine. But with thousands of pots now boiling 24 hours a day, well, that required a lot of lumber. And one day, there were no more trees to cut down. Just a few decades after arriving on the island, it was ruined, and Madeira, for all intents and purposes, had been used up. Now, in recent years, as we take stock of everything that's gone wrong with our treatment of the planet, a lot of economists point to Madeira as the place where society changed. Before this colony, people would move around based on normal human factors, safety, access to food, and stuff like that. Then whatever they'd find or cultivate is what they would trade to make money. But starting with Madeira, the calculation would flip. Now people were moving to follow commodities, thinking about money first, and then working out how to survive. And that had never happened before. Now, when it comes to Madeira, from a purely financial
It sounds like we're seeing the beginnings of proto-capitalism over here.
perspective, it was a massive success. and the people who'd made the profits, well, they were ready to try again. This included Bartholomew Peristrello, the leader of the Madeira colony.
Bro, what is this music?
And of course, his
I don't hate it. Just I feel like we haven't heard this type of music within this video
son-in-law
yet.
and right-hand man, a Genoese sugar trader by the name of Christopher Columbus.
Ooh boy, him. Okay, yeah, okay. The music makes sense now. Yeah, we got Christopher Columbus stepping onto the hood. Yeah, it makes a lot more sense.
All right, now before we start this segment, I need to make one thing clear. What happened in the sugar trade during the Age of Exploration has been the subject of a ton of incredible books and comprehensive studies. Anthropologists and historians have devoted entire careers to exploring this topic, and there is no way we can tell this story here in any kind of complete way. So just keep in mind that for this next part, all we're going to be doing is going through the headlines, and the whole massive story is just so much worse than what we have time to cover. But here are the broad strokes. After Christopher Columbus accidentally bumped into the West Indies, he would come back the next year in 1493 with stalks of sugar. But it would take him another decade to find what he considered the perfect place to be his new Madeira, the island we now call Jamaica. Plans were made for a large-scale refinery, but then Columbus died and his son Diego was put in charge. And to clear the land, a few thousand indigenous Taino were marched at gunpoint to the new settlement. But this was not well thought out. The land wasn't well suited for planting, and as for the Taino, well, they had a bad habit of dying, either from overwork, Spanish diseases, or a lack of food, since the colonists also didn't take feeding the slaves into account. Anyway, where the Spanish failed, the Portuguese would succeed a few decades later and further to the south. In what's now northeast Brazil by the year 1534, we see the seeds of new enterprises, with wealthy investors bringing experts from Madeira to design entire production cities, along with sugar farms and refineries.
So basically,
the
company
Portuguese
towns.
constructed foundries to make cast iron kettles, stone masonries to build furnaces, carpenter shops and cooper buildings, and basically these were complete sugar colonies, which would be a template repeated over and over. And with all these new buildings, well, the Portuguese would need people, and by now there weren't a lot of natives left. So in 1542, a Portuguese planter asked the crown for permission to begin importing slaves from Africa, and the answer, of course, was yes. This would begin what would come to be called the Triangle Trade: sugar from the Americas, money from Europe, and humans from Africa. And on the cycle would grow. On the European side, demand for sugar was skyrocketing. Shops began selling cakes and pastries. Candy was
God, such a morbidly interesting idea to think that like all 300 years of slavery and all the racism, specifically anti-black racism that happened afterwards and during, was just because of fucking sugar and other sorts of spices and textiles, other labor-intensive products. But,
humans from Africa. And on the cycle would grow. On the European side, demand for sugar was skyrocketing. Shops began selling cakes and pastries. Candy was suddenly accessible to the masses, and products like tea, coffee, and chocolate, disregarded in the past for tasting too bitter, well, suddenly, with just a little bit of sugar, they were all new sensations. In the New World, while the Portuguese had a sugar monopoly, but only for a short time, as the Dutch quickly built their own farms in South America. Then the Dutch and Portuguese would go to war, and with the sugar supply interrupted, onto the scene came the French, the Spanish, and the English, all looking to build their own sugar empires. And with each new plantation came more African slaves. Hell, by the 1600s, all the labor had to be imported because there were no more natives. Every last Taino dead from disease, starvation, or massacre, or from work related to the sugar fields. The New World sugar plantations were brutal. Working conditions were shocking, the heat was oppressive, and the average life expectancy for any slave assigned to the industry was 8 years. That's it, 8 years. And with so much turnover, well, even more slaves would have to be sent across the Atlantic, and the numbers would be staggering. 250,000 to French Martinique, and 3 times that number to San Domingue, today's Haiti. 1 million Africans to the British colony of Jamaica, and 400,000 more to Barbados. The Spanish would import 800,000 to work the fields of Cuba. The Dutch would send 500,000 to Suriname and 600,000 to Curacao, although that wasn't a sugar field. It was a slave market, auctioning off humans to plantation owners from across the South Atlantic. And as for the Portuguese, well, with full control of Brazil, they'd bring in 5.5 million Africans, completely repopulating the world's 5th largest country, with slaves trafficked from across the ocean. Altogether, during the years of the transatlantic slave trade, 12.5 million people were sent by force to the Americas. Honestly, a lot more when you consider that anyone who didn't survive the ocean crossing wasn't even counted in the numbers. And of this unbelievable total, 70%, 7 out of every 10 slaves, were sent to the New World to work in the sugar industry. And since there's no reasonable segue from this kind of subject, well, let's just take a break and go get drunk.
Honestly, yeah, I'm not gonna complain.
In the mid-1500s, pretty much as soon as the first sugar colonies show up in Brazil, the slaves began turning some of the liquid into alcohol, in the beginning fermenting the foam that the Portuguese would skim off and throw away during crystallization. The name for this waste product was cachaço. Today, cachaça is still the national drink of Brazil. Then 100 years later in Barbados, a contract was signed for a warehouse meant to store something called rum bullion, described in writing as a hot, hellish, and terrible liquor. And this was how the world would be introduced to rum.
Damn. Well, one man's trash is another man's treasure, I guess.
Yeah, so this is, what are we drinking? We're drinking Captain Morgan's dark rum. Interesting thing about rum, there is no difference in the rum making process, whether it's light rum, dark rum, spiced rum. It's just clear spirit. You distill it from molasses and it's clear. The color is from aging in barrels. I don't have a microphone on you.
So wait. The color is just from aging in barrels. Is that? Wouldn't that mean you're drinking like freaking barrel material? I mean, I guess. I mean, yeah. I mean, nowadays with the preservatives and other kinds of things we put in a lot of things, I'm kind of concerning. I'm wondering what are we drinking when we're drinking rum then? If the coloring is basically barrel essence.
Cheers. When rum was first introduced, it would quickly become a part of the daily rations of British sailors. Not because they loved the stuff, but because it was said that adding alcohol to water could stave off scurvy. Before long, pretty much all of the boats sailing back and forth across the Atlantic were including rum in their provisions, the English earning the nickname limeys for adding a squeeze of citrus to their watered-down rum. Pretty much everyone was finding ways to make their rum more appealing, and it was on the boats of the Caribbean where the idea of the cocktail first shows up. According to beverage historians, the first cocktail ever was...
Okay, I was not expecting, when you said we were going to go on a quick drink break, I wasn't expecting it to be still so educational. I didn't realize so much of the I guess alcohol, modern day alcohol stuff came apparently from the goddamn transatlantic slave trade. So
something called the bumbo, made from rum, water, and sugar mixed with nutmeg and cinnamon. It would become a sensation that influenced our mainstream culture, but this was not invented by the British Royal Navy or any official merchant mariners. It was the drink of another group of people who loved their rum and who made a living by taking their own cut of the sugar trade. In the early 1600s, a group of French farmers on Hispaniola had abandoned their attempt at a sugar plantation and were living off the land, raising pigs and cattle. They built huts for smoking meat, given the Taino word boucan. In French, they'd call themselves boucaniers, or buccaneers. Now, they would have been content to stay farmers forever, but then the Spanish arrived and attacked, so the buccaneers took refuge on a small island off the northern coast. a place called Tortuga, and from there they'd take their revenge. Now, at first, the Frenchmen were only interested in making life miserable for the Spanish, but soon their exploits would earn the attention of others who sought to cause trouble for their enemies, and back then, well, everyone had enemies. So the demand for piracy soared, and more people, out-of-work farmers, runaway slaves, and even noblemen, made their way to Tortuga, and thus began the golden age of piracy. Now, back then, the Europeans used to protect their colonies by contracting ships called privateers to keep other people away. The privateers would be paid in bounty. Whenever they raided another boat, they were allowed to keep a share of the rum and gold, the rest the property of the crown. But buccaneers acknowledged no king, so by 1650, nearly all privateers were now ignoring orders and flying their own pirate flag. And with so much of the world's economy sailing in and out of their territory, well, the spoils were incredible. Sir Francis Drake was a privateer turned pirate who made so much money he'd become a famous explorer and earn a British knighthood, though in Spain he's still known by the nickname the Dragon. And then there was Henry Morgan, originally from Wales. When he decided to strike out on his own, he recruited a crew from Tortuga and would steal so much gold he'd end up buying out Jamaica's sugar industry, becoming one of the richest men alive and a major celebrity in the UK. The dread.
Bro, that's crazy. I mean, obviously I knew that, like, pirates were, criminals, basically, but I mean, rather it's because I know that pirates are criminals that's crazy to hear. They basically became so rich that they were able to, I guess they basically got fuck you money, so they didn't need to worry about paying for their crimes, basically, which is, I guess it's not that surprising when you think about modern day rich people, who a lot of them are basically just criminals who are too rich to be punished. I guess it's just that common pattern in life where a lot of things that seem modern and new are actually they're actually very ancient. Yeah.
Captain Morgan. Now, the glory days of piracy would end as quickly as they'd begin, with the European countries finally agreeing in 1713 to
Yeah,
stop.
I mean, there's no way that could have gone on for that long. Like, that sounds crazy.
Fighting each other, turning their navies instead against the pirates of the Caribbean. But by that time, they were anti-heroes, legends described in songs and stories, and there could be no better marketing for rum. Even today, it's impossible to think of one without the other. In 1624, Dutch ships arrived in the Western Pacific at a place once named Formosa by Portuguese explorers, the Island of Beauty. Since the Dutch were about to lose all their Brazilian holdings, this was their backup plan. And as soon as they landed, they started work on what would be the most ambitious sugar plantation ever conceived. Now, when the Dutch arrived, Formosa wasn't empty, but it was pretty close. The total population was somewhere around 50,000, divided into small tribes of Austronesians, the very same people whose ancestors once sailed to New Guinea and started this whole story. But the Dutch didn't care about the locals, and they weren't bringing African slaves either. No, their idea was to pay a visit to Fujian, around the old Quanzhou port, and recruit as many disaffected Chinese as possible, to try to convince the world's most venerated sugar masters to leave behind the isolationist Ming and come work for Holland. And this would be the birth of what we now call Taiwan. Now, the Taiwanese sugar colony would prove an incredible success. An estimated 35,000 Fujianese made the move.
Good lord, another. I mean, this really is bringing together a whole mess of things that were kind of, I guess, individual, unrelated entities in my mind. And I imagine a lot of people's minds. I mean, I had no idea that Taiwan was related to this whole sugar trade thing. Like, I mean, if you're in the obviously, if you're in the VTuber space at all, you're aware of how Taiwan has let's say, caused some, it's been a controversial topic, but yeah, I didn't realize. I mean, I didn't realize how it started, I guess.
Moved to the island, and for the Dutch, well, their new Pacific supply of sugar would help them not just keep their European market share, but got them exclusive trading access to Japan after the shogun kicked everyone else out in 1639. After 40 years, the Dutch would lose control of Taiwan, and the island would gain a brief period of king. So by 1650, nearly all in the end, it wasn't even necessary for Europe's sugar supply. It swelled to more than 2 million, and by 1750, Taiwan was the world's leading exporter of sugar, producing 6 times as much refined product as the entire colony of Brazil. As tragic as the transatlantic slave trade was, maybe the most shocking part of the whole thing was that in the end, it wasn't even necessary for Europe's sugar supply. By the middle of the 18th century, there were enormous plantations owned by or selling to the West, not just in Taiwan, but across Southeast Asia, with equipment made in China and workers migrating from Fujian. There were massive enterprises on Luzon in the Philippines, the Indonesian island of Java, in Vietnam's Mekong Delta, and even here in Siam, where by the 1800s, 12,000 tons a year were being sold into Europe, and we're not even talking about the grandfather of sugar. But India was very much still there, and about to make its mark on our story one more time.
Yeah, I love that. The ethical
In
sugar
1781,
revolution.
a British slave ship called the
The quotes there are very, they're very comforting.
Zong was sailing across the Atlantic when the captain realized he'd miscalculated provisions and there wasn't enough drinking water to complete the trip. So he had his men execute all 130 Africans on board, then filed an insurance claim when they arrived in Jamaica.
Wow.
Now, under any other circumstances, this would not have made the news, but someone at the insurance company tipped off a freed slave and abolitionist named Olade Equiano.
I mean, I didn't respond to that much, but I don't know, it's kind of like, what do you say to that? Apparently, that was just common practice.
Who then paid a visit to Granville Sharp, an allied lawyer, and from there, well, this was just the kind of sensation that they knew might start an anti-slavery movement, and that's exactly what happened. The Quakers came on board almost immediately. Then the
Yeah, that's always an interesting thing with these stories, I guess. They're not stories, with slavery, I guess. There are always people who are who are abolitionists, I should say, always anti-slavery. Which, I mean, I guess, like, might sound like it goes without saying, but there are plenty of people who would insist otherwise. Like, I guess, yeah.
Industrialist Josiah Wedgwood, the grandfather of Charles Darwin, who went as far as to design a logo. Poets and writers made sure the newspaper stayed engaged, and the public couldn't get enough of the sordid details. And then finally, in 1791, 500,000 British citizens went on strike.
What on earth, bro? The artist was a the artist who ever drew this person's face was kind of
against New World Sugar, the first
let's
commercial
say, they use in practice
ever in history, and it would prove effective. Nearly overnight, all major shops and vendors switched to carry.
I mean, to be fair, it sounds like these are not supposed to be flattering pictures, so I guess it makes sense they look butt fucking ugly.
Quote, ethical sugar from British India. Signs outside bakeries and candy stores advertised sugar from the East Indies, not the West Indies, and shipments sent from India started carrying the slogan, free grown or made by free people.
It really is crazy. Like, it really is crazy how this is literally just like the modern day, basically, but like 300 years ago. I mean, again, I've been saying it. It's not uncommon for that to be the case, but I mean, just when you see it with your own eyes, it's like
the details
something
of the Zone
else.
Massacre and the book that Equiano would publish would finally turn public sentiment against slavery across the continent. And just 1 year after the sugar boycott, Denmark would become the first European country to ban the transatlantic slave trade, and from there, well, the ball would slowly start rolling. Now, the legacy of the free-grown sugar movement is complicated. On one hand, the public pressure to outlaw slavery was huge and it would be a major turning point. But by focusing only on the slave trade, the public ignored the environmental catastrophe that was unfolding, not just in the New World, but in Taiwan, Indonesia, and beyond, where entire jungles were being cut down to keep up with demand. There was no discussion about the brutal nature of sugarcane work in the first place, paid or unpaid, as even where there was no slavery, sugar plantations still had the highest mortality of any industry. As a matter of fact, with quotas increasing by the 1800s, the average life expectancy on a sugar field had actually gone down from 8 to 7 years, slave or otherwise. And of course, there was the fact that sugar from India wasn't exactly a utopian product itself. The workers on English colonial plantations in a lot of cases didn't have any more choice than African slaves. Their hours were just as brutal, payment was next to nothing, and the sugar was hardly the conscientious product that consumers seemed to believe. But maybe we just didn't want to know, since the one thing never discussed at all was just giving up sugar.
Right.
Even though it had only been a part of our diet for 200 years.
I mean, at that point, it sounds like it's freaking the gasoline of the 1700s. Like, they're not going to give that up any more than we would give up our gasoline.
By this point, we were hooked, and there was no going back. One last note, by the way, in 1838, when England would finally abolish slavery in the colonies, the new Queen Victoria would agree to a system of compensation to make up for the change in policy. The Crown agreed to pay a sum to anyone invested in the sugar trade to help smooth over the loss of free human labor, and the payouts were so high that it would bring about what we now call the Victorian era. It would be the largest stimulus in history relative to the size of an economy, and it would kickstart the Industrial Revolution and bring about a new British Golden Age. As for the slaves themselves...
Really?
Well, they got nothing.
I don't disbelieve what you're saying. I'm more just surprised. Apparently, I guess it makes sense. I mean, the way people normally talk about with it being kind of a, I guess, quote unquote, natural result of the, I guess, invention of the steam engine and like coal mining and whatnot. Yeah, I can believe that wasn't the whole story. I mean, definitely getting what is apparently the largest cash infusion in any economy's history. I mean, yeah, it sounds like it would like jumpstart a whole bunch of shit.
Let's take another rum break.
Oh, good. We'll learn some more about crazy connections between alcohol and sugar and modern day things.
You know, it's funny because we're sitting here at a cocktail bar, and like, what is a cocktail, right? You know, this is my job forever. I was behind a bar, you know, making cocktails, and a cocktail is something strong like a liquor, something sour or bitter, and then something sweet to bring it into balance. And, you know, that sweetness, you know, I can't imagine, like, what is the base cocktail? The base cocktail is a daiquiri. It's rum, it's lime or citrus, and it's sugar. You know, what's an old fashioned? What's a Manhattan? You go through these cocktails, there's always that sweet element that has to balance out the rest of it. And like, it's the same thing when we talk about what are the basic flavor profiles of food. Sweet, sour, spicy, salty, bitter, umami, right? Like, that sweetness is new. This is not something that's always existed. You know, the last video we made before this, we were taping in Lake Toba in Indonesia, and that's a place where the cuisine is 3,000 years old. You know, Dennis, you remember we were just down there, there was no sugar. They don't use it. It does not exist in their cuisine. And like, it's interesting when you think about our basic idea of what something tastes like, a drink or food.
Yeah.
It incorporates...
It's always interesting to find out that so many of the things we take to be sort of fundamental, like, parts of civilization are actually often very modern, new things. Things that did not exist for most of human history, or if they did exist, they were not commonplace or like everyday sort of things.
Creates this flavor, which is brand new, which we didn't have, we couldn't afford, we didn't know about it, and we had fruits, we had honey, but a meal was not something that had to involve, a sweet element. This is something that kind of, it's only been a few generations like this, but we can't even imagine what food or drinks would be like without it. Take sugar out of cocktails and there are no more cocktails. It's just not a thing that exists.
How easy we forget. How easy we get used to things.
And that's the end of the bottle, and that means that it's time for us to wrap up here.
Yeah. Let's see more man-made horrors within our comprehension.
A decade after the British sugar boycott, the European continent would be almost completely cut off from New World sugar. Not by choice, but because of a series of blockades thanks to the Napoleonic Wars. So in 1811, Napoleon himself was visited by a delegation of French scientists who told the emperor about a new innovation, one that might enable him to supply his country with sugar made at home with no need to import anything. The basic concept involved the use of a plant that had been found to store sucrose after photosynthesis, just like the sugarcane stalk. It was called the beta vulgaris, basically the common beet. And while in nature its sugar content was barely 1%, well, for more than half a century, experiments in Germany had quietly managed to increase this to 5%, then 10, then 20, exactly on par with the sugarcane.
The idea mutant sugar
beets came from Frederick the Great, who as a northern king surrounded by enemies was obsessed with food independence. It's also why he's known as the father of potato farming. Anyway, to run the experiments, he'd hire Andreas Marggraf, a Berlin professor of physics, who would successfully—
Why the hell does he look like a ancient Roman, like Senate person?
crystallize white sugar from beets. And then Marggraf's student Franz Karl Achard would perfect the process and open the first small-scale factory in Poland, which was all the proof that Napoleon needed to see. He'd go all in, ordering 70,000 acres to be planted with sugar beets. And not only did France suddenly find itself with a domestic source of sugar, well, the world had a humane alternative, at least relatively speaking. After all, processing beets didn't involve tropical heat, razor-sharp leaves, or the threat of imminent spoilage. They were just beets. Boil them and—
I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop and for it to turn out to, like, yeah, actually, it's just a different type of inhumane.
There you go. By 1840, 5% of the world's sugar market had moved from cane to beets, and within 4 more decades, that number was up to half, 50%. And that changed the balance of power, as now it was the beet producers who got to set global prices, and they did through collusion and stock manipulation. As a matter of fact, in the 20th century, the oil cartels would base their structure and models on the tactics of big sugar. And these conglomerates, well, pretty soon they were in the food business as well. Sweet cookies and desserts, breakfast cereal, sodas.
What? So I'm hearing that all these shitty, like, advertising and corporate practices that have basically hollowed out society for, like, the past 100 some odd years were pioneered by like, beet sugar companies. I mean, it really does sound like sugar. Yeah, I mean, the title of this video, how sugar destroyed everything, it gets more and more true the longer this video goes on.
In just 50 years, the average sugar consumption in the United States alone went from 8 kilos per person in 1850 to 41 in 1900. And most of that increase was based on children who would spend their allowance at the neighborhood candy store. And then as ad agencies started shaping consumer tastes, well, sugar gives us another breakthrough. Brands like Tootsie Rolls becoming the first products marketed directly to kids. And as if that wasn't enough, there would be one more use for beet sugar that would make an impact on the 20th century. And since this story is already f***ing terrible, Well, why not bring in Adolf Hitler just for good measure?
Right.
See, the Nazis were massive sugar beet producers, in part because they'd been cut off from foreign imports, but also because Hitler himself was so addicted to sweets. He was said to eat 2 pounds of candy every day. He added
2
heaping
pounds.
spoons of sugar to his tea and his wine
Bro,
and his water.
do I even need
and when he
2 pounds
died,
of
his
anything in a day?
teeth had already started falling out because of all the sweets. But his main interest in sugar was the fact that a byproduct of crystallizing beets is something known as prussic acid, or as it's more commonly referred to, hydrogen cyanide. The cyanide made by the Nazis from beet sugar wastewater would be given the name Zyklon B, and it was this gas that would be used at concentration camps. And I'm just going to grab a bottle of rum one more time.
Yeah.
Just give me a second.
I was not expecting that.
In 1954, members of a lobbying group called the SRF, or Sugar Research Foundation, were concerned about press coverage blaming sugar for a surge in obesity, heart disease, and cancer. So they came up
I
with a
remember
plan to pay off.
I brought this up way back at the beginning of part 1 of this video. I did not expect there to be so much worse, so much more behind sugar.
Dozens of scientists, including Harvard professors, to start planting articles in medical journals blaming all the bad stuff on fat, not sugar. Suddenly, our grocery stores were full of low-fat products and fat-free whatever, and all it meant was more and more sugar packed into our food. And our consumption would rise by another 30% in the aftermath of the SRF studies. And the more sugar we eat, the more we destroy not just our health, but our planet. As by now, out of all the land we have, well, 8% of every square centimeter of land on Earth, well, it's used to farm sugarcane. Another 2% for sugar beets, and it gets even worse. With monoculture farming comes the risk of pests and disease.
Yep.
So that means more use of pesticides, and that means we need to modify the food itself so it can handle getting sprayed with all those chemicals. And if that sounds over the top, well, 95% of all the sugar beets grown in the US today are from a species called Roundup Ready, genetically engineered by Monsanto to be resistant to the cancer-causing pesticide Roundup, which is also owned by Monsanto. And if that's not evil enough, well, in 2018, Monsanto was sold to Bayer, a healthcare company. So now the same conglomerate that tells you what's safe to eat is making your food, making the pesticides in your food, and making the medicine you're gonna need when your food starts to kill you. And I'm not taking
Sounds like
Bayer.
a perfect cycle of capitalist greed right there.
That's everything. Pretty much every major food product is now a part of this cycle designed to keep you eating sugar. And we could keep going about all the health crises and environmental crises we're all facing because of our sugar addiction. We could talk about all the human trafficking that's still going on in the false advertising of the, quote, fake sugar industry. But it has been a long day, so I'm just gonna pour myself one more shot, maybe put on some happy music, grab a snack to feel better, anything to
Oh my
wrap up
God.
the worst story in the history of food, the story of sugar.
Fucking wild.
Subscribe to the channel for more from OTR. Thank you so much to everyone who supports us on Patreon. It really helps to keep us going. Find links below to our Patreon and social media, and we'll see you soon.
I want to see some of the... Oh, definitely gonna like this video, but I want to see some of the comments. Yeah, again, people are being funny here. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for not sugarcoating the subject. I'll see myself out, yeah. Sugar, the biggest drug trade the world's ever known. I mean, yeah, this is often a sentiment you hear in videos like this. Like, dude, I think this video should be part of a global education curriculum. Just wow, but it's like, I mean, you hear some of the stuff we're talking about in this video. Like, there's no way the sugar companies would allow a shit like this to be, you know, commonly taught and commonly taught at all. Like, Yeah. Just crazy. Trying to resize this. Wait. There. Good lord, it took forever to get the little toolbar thing up there. Anyway, I mean, there's so much to be said about this, but I mean, one thing that sticks out to me at the core of this story is kind of like this idea of turning of this thing has become very prevalent in modern society of taking what in pre-modern society and in the ancient past, whatever, was just kind of a special treat, or like something that was not an everyday like commodity, whatever. Taking that and turning it into something, mass produced and all that stuff, and the costs of doing that, like, I guess, like, there's almost like a narrative kind of lesson to it, where it's like, it was special for a reason. Like, you can't. There's some things in the world that you shouldn't make. Every day kind of idea. I don't know. It's like, I guess as we get older, we tend to think of those sorts of fairy tale style lessons as that's for kids. It's not relevant to us adults in our adult world, whatever. But I mean, having seen what happens when you try to go against that, maybe there's a reason that we tell the stories to our children. Yeah, then. I mean, I wrote here the beginnings of African slavery and the sugarcane production process. But I mean, apparently, it was the sugarcane production process was the beginning of like 80% of our modern way of life. So there's not really a reason to specifically single out African slavery and all the horrors that resulted from that. It's like just shaking my head. Shaking my damn head. Yeah. And I also noticed the similarities between sugar production and gasoline production. Similar just awful impact on the peoples and lands where gasoline and other sorts of natural gas and petroleum products are sourced and produced. Like, I mean, the Middle East is very. I was reminded very much of the Middle East when I was hearing some of these stories about what was going on in like South America and just the Americas in general. Yeah, I mean, the last little, I guess, nugget is something kind of specific to world builders such as myself. I mean, this little insight that, like, well, very specific arbitrary things can very easily become fundamental aspects of society that, like, self-perpetuate themselves in perpetuity. Like, something that was, like, I mean, something like sugar that was originally not really a part of most societies' diets, not in any clear, explicit way, can suddenly become these like, I mean, it's almost like a cancer metastasizing in a host body. I mean, they can become these things that just hijack the whole of society and force it to keep producing itself, even at the complete detriment of society. So that's an interesting thing to keep in mind. Like, it doesn't. To be fair, the way I'm describing it sounds like it always has to be a negative thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I mean, I can't really think of any non-negative examples off the top of my head, but it's an interesting thing for me to keep in mind going forward. But just amazing video all around. You can definitely gonna look at more of this guy's stuff. We got a whole hopefully, hopefully, history other things is not going to be as terrible. I mean, though I do know the potato has had some interesting, yeah, let's call it interesting effects in terms of famine and other such things. But yeah. Why is my mouth always so dry? It's fucking annoying. You know, I sip and sip, and yet it doesn't. I mean, even ate food right before. I mean, I guess I ate breakfast. Is what I should be calling it. But I even ate that before, 15, 20 minutes before stream to try and get that spit production going, man. Not working. Okay, so we're gonna be checking out Mimi Yori's why women love this fan service anime, which to be clear is my dress up darling. But yeah, I've never actually watched the anime myself. I mean, I've seen like the occasional reaction vid, but other than that, not really seen anything. Though I have done some fan art of the series that I've not watched, like a true Twitter artist. And I've also seen some great little animation clips from the series. Very salacious. Yeah, fan service in those cases is a very apt term for what's going on there. But yeah, it does seem like a story that really respects the cosplay scene, which that's probably why. Well, that specifically has earned a lot of goodwill from that crowd, which is a big part of the anime crowd in general, and that's probably why, among lots of other reasons, why this story is so popular in general, and then unsurprisingly why it'd be so popular with women. I mean, it is a fan service anime, but like it's just that it services every fan, not instead of just like a select few. So I mean, I guess the solution to the fan service discourse that kind of plagues anime so much was just to just service all the fans. If everyone's getting fan service, and like what do you have to complain about?
It's rare to see an ecchi anime beloved by so many women online, but My Dress Up Darling breaks the mold. How come? Today, we're diving into why Marin Kitagawa and this unexpected rom-com have charmed a female audience.
Oh, yep. And as always, putting the notes up here. Sometimes I don't always have something. I don't always have little notes to have, but just in case, I want to be there.
Despite the abundant fan service. Written and illustrated by Shinichi Fukuda, My Dress Up Darling, or its original Japanese name, Sono Bisku Doru.
I love the
My Dress Up Darling
parental advisory. Oh wait, let me see if we can again. Let me move myself out of the way. Or rather, let me. Yeah, parental advisory very for the English release, but not for the Japanese one.
Or its original Japanese name, Sono Bisku Doru wa Koi o Suru, began its
that name is a mouthful. I'm very happy that they changed it to My Dress Up Darling. It was trying to get reference fan art for that aforementioned art that I did years ago was not fun.
As a manga back in 2018 in Young Gangan magazine. The story follows Wakana Gojo, a first-year high school student who loves Hina dolls, a Japanese style of doll that wear traditional Heian period clothing. These Hina dolls are handcrafted with incredible precision and given delicate, unique, beautiful features by the painter. Gojo's grandfather owns a shop dedicated to the dolls, and ever since he was a child has been infatuated with them and dreamed of becoming a kashirashi, or Hina doll maker. After being made fun of by a childhood friend for having a girly interest,
"You're a freak!"
Damn.
"What's wrong with you, Wakana? Dolls are for girls. Boys aren't supposed to play with them. You're not my friend. I hate you!"
Well, I mean, shit.
Gojo resigns
Yeah,
himself to living a lonely life.
No wonder the kid got so traumatized. Like, that's like, you're talking about uncalled for.
Of only focusing on his craft rather than making connections for fear of being hated because of what he loves.
Yeah, to
One
be fair,
day, while working,
he could have gone all incel on everyone's ass, but he chose to, focus on his interests. So definitely the better option.
on the clothing for a Hina doll, Gojo's sewing machine breaks, forcing him to use the one at his school after hours. There, he meets Marin Kitagawa, an extraordinarily beautiful, popular, friendly girl in his class. Marin is blown away by Gojo's ability to sew and admires his Hina doll, making her the first person to show an interest in Gojo's hobby. Marin then explains that she wants to make her own cosplay so that she can become her favorite character, Shizuku-tan, despite knowing nothing about sewing. Because of the kindness Marin showed Gojo, he agrees to help her create a cosplay from scratch with his genius sewing prowess. From there, the couple grow closer, and Gojo slowly opens up more and more to Marin as they keep working together on more cosplays. It's a romantic comedy slice of life with ecchi elements. Like I mentioned before, My Dress-Up Darling was serialized in a seinen magazine, Young Gangan. Seinen is a genre that caters towards adult men, and popular stories in the genre are often dark, gritty dramas. However, it's also the case that seinen magazines are typically filled to the brim with sexy women and ecchi manga. If you don't know what ecchi means, I'll briefly explain it. Basically, it's a subgenre for anime and manga that contain a lot of sexual content and imagery without explicitly being pornographic. My Dress-Up Darling is certainly one of those cases.
That High School DxD ending pole dancing animations were they were crazy. As someone who was a young man during that time, I'll let you imagine. I'll let you imagine what I did with that.
Explicitly being pornographic. My Dress-Up Darling is certainly one of those cases, and if you don't believe me, just watch episode 2. Most Western fans refer to these moments as fan service, and it's not uncommon to see ecchi scenes.
I don't think that's a Western fan thing, right? Like, they do call it? I mean, normally they might call it like sabisu or like service, basically, but like, I don't think it's strictly. I mean, maybe it's more common to refer to it, and certainly I think there's a lot more discourse around it in the Western sphere than there is in Japan. But they do, for sure, the Japanese do use like that might be where the term, at least in the anime community, like came from. But
in genres other than seinen. But I can say with confidence that My Dress-Up Darling is much more sexual overall than something like Bleach, for example.
Oh, yes.
Ecchi shows are often made for the male gaze, and most women I know aren't really interested in the genre. So why does this one resonate differently?
Why be rude about it? Making fun of the things people like is not hot.
Marin isn't a passive object. She's driven, passionate, and in control of her sexuality. She gets shy in certain situations where it would make sense to, but overall she feels very comfortable with herself and isn't ashamed of her body. Marin proudly expresses her love of erotic games, even though it's a pretty taboo and strange hobby to have. Her favorite character and first cosplay, Shizuku-tan, is from one such game.
Shizuku Kuroe-tan, from Saint Slippery's Academy for Girls Young Ladies of the Humiliation Club.
I'm sorry, what?
Despite the game being a super hardcore eroge, Marin spouts off its content to Gojo like it's nothing.
I mean, yeah, to be fair, as a VTuber fan, enjoyer, and I guess kind of half VTuber myself, yeah, this is not surprising at all to me. I mean, there are the female gooner, like ecchi lover audience is like big in that space. So I mean, I don't find it too surprising. I mean, obviously in real life, yeah, you're not gonna find either male or female self-professed gooners, but definitely online where people feel safe to express that part of themselves. Yeah, it's you'll find that the women are just as horny as the men. This is
who
and
is complete-
oftentimes way more depraved, and in that way only like a repressed person can be.
dumbfounded, spouts off its content to Gojo like it's nothing, who is completely dumbfounded by its degeneracy. But Marin doesn't
Guy
know
is
this
sweating.
because she doesn't see this type of interest to be shameful or embarrassing. She likes it, so she's gonna talk about it, regardless of what people think of her. Marin's love for cosplay and edoge feels relatable and empowering, especially to women with niche or unconventional hobbies. And like Marin says,
When you find something that you're really excited about, does gender matter?
speaking of gender, while I was looking through this official My Dress Up Darling fanbook, I noticed a quote from the character designer and chief animation director Kazumasu Ishida that really caught my eye. The interviewer asks, "What was it about Marin that appealed to you?" And he replies with,
She's straightforward, full of confidence, and delightful to watch in action. She may be an otaku, but she's accepted by her peers. In a sense, she's unbeatable. She chases her dreams without a hint of irony. I don't think there's anything about her that would turn off audiences of any gender. Finally, I love the way
honestly,
she
yeah.
looks, of course.
Right.
Kazumasu is an incredible animation director who also worked on Wonder Egg Priority, which has strikingly beautiful animation despite its many controversies. It's no wonder
Yeah,
that
that's
the
putting it
anime
lightly.
adaptation of My Dress Up Darling looks so gorgeous with someone like him involved. When Kazumasu said, "I don't think there's anything about her that would turn off audiences of any gender," I thought, wow, that's such an interesting line from one of the head creators of the anime, and it really is true.
Yeah.
Marin is nearly unhateable by both male and female viewers. Her personality
honestly.
is just that great.
I mean,
Marin is
this
the
is the kind of person who I think could like fucking reform incels almost. Like, she really is like the perfect human being.
first person to actively take an interest in Gojo's passion for Hina dolls, where she asks to see his doll after running into him in the home ec room.
That makes so much sense, no wonder. So, is that a Hina doll? Let me see it.
Yeah, here you go.
Wow. She's so beautiful.
Marin calls the doll beautiful and really admires the craftsmanship put into it, which blows Gojo away since he thought people would hate him for having a feminine interest. Despite his fears, Marin actually validates his love for Hina dolls, which he returns in full force by validating her hobby soon after, by helping her create cosplays. Marin is very proactive and she works to get what she wants. She doesn't do it by trampling people though, she's aware of others' boundaries, but that doesn't stop her assertive personality from taking control. Like, for example, when she invites herself to Gojo's house in episode 2. Marin looked up his Hina doll store and made her way there and basically lets herself in. Not before giving Gojo a cheesecake though, so at least she has some manners. When Gojo starts getting insecure about people at school thinking him and Marin are a couple, she doesn't give up on Gojo even after he starts purposely avoiding her. Instead, she tracks him down and forces him to open up to her about his insecurity before instantly reassuring him and taking him along on a fun shopping date. Marin has the personality of a leader through and through. She may not be a genius at everything, but her ability to plan, proactiveness, people skills, and overall confidence make her such a great role model, at least in my opinion. When I asked My Dress Up Darling fan Evie Leafy on Twitter why she thinks Marin is such a popular character among women, she replied, "Marin being a girl who's very passionate but also open-minded is inspiring. Throughout the series, she's helped and inspired many with her passion and love for her hobby."
Yeah, that is.
Sorry.
That is. I mean, seeing someone being so, unapologetically, so unabashedly, passionate about anything, but I mean, especially something that you yourself are kind of ashamed of and like, kind of embarrassed about. That is, I mean, that's incredibly like reassuring, I guess. Like, I mean, I myself I shouldn't even say kind of. I myself went through something very similar when I found out about VTubers in like the 2020s, in the September of 2020, rather, like, yeah, I haven't mentioned it in the video, but I'm an adult artist. I make adult art and whatnot, and for so long, for so long, I was basically Mr. Gojo over here, keeping it, on the hush hush, on the low, on the down low, and everything. But seeing, getting into the VTubing space and seeing so many people, men, women, whatever, being very openly like horny and like open to like adult arts in like all shapes and forms. I really did. It's hard to understand just how like good that felt, being able to see like, oh, okay, I'm not some weirdo. Like, it turns out that a lot of people are horny on main out there. They're just just like me. They're hiding it to be functional members of society. But when you take away the fear of punishment or whatever of ridicule and all that stuff, then suddenly people can express their true feelings, and you realize that it's you're not some lone weirdo.
I cut my finger again.
Gojo has a hobby he cares about just
Yeah,
as
he sliced that
passionately as
shit.
Marin, that being the creation of Hina dolls. He was made fun of for having such a seemingly feminine interest.
What's wrong with you, Wakana? Dolls are for girls!
Which pretty much traumatized him into becoming a very reserved person and not sharing much about him.
And that girl must have. To be so. How to phrase it? So stuck on traditional gender roles like that at such a young age. Like, what's happening? Like, I'm kind of worried about this girl's home life. Like, what's going on that he's thinking that's her first thought, and she's this like righteously indignant about it. Like, damn.
Pretty much traumatized him into becoming a very reserved person and not sharing much about himself with others. In the end, a young Gojo decided to choose Hina dolls over human relationships, and thus spent a huge chunk of his—
Honestly, I never thought of it, but we do have very similar life stories. I was never, I remember, I was never like fucking, like, I never had a peer like fucking read me the riot act for being in that kind of stuff as a kid. But obviously you only need that when society is so down on any sort of sexual media or content at all. So just that is enough to make you to teach you to keep that sort of stuff to yourself. So, but yeah, this very, very similar life path of being like, well, if I have to choose between doing the thing that I'm passionate about or having human connection, well, I'll choose the thing that I'm passionate about 10 times out of 10, so.
His formative years focusing only on making Hina dolls rather than friends. Gojo feels completely alone in his obsession with the dolls and thinks that no one else can understand him because of it. His grandpa is concerned about this and brings it up in the first episode, but Gojo lies and brushes it off.
But have you had any time to make real friends?
Of course, I have friends. Lots of them, actually.
I've got all
but
these
they're
Hina
in
dolls.
different clubs, so it's hard to plan stuff.
When Gojo first meets Marin, he thinks to himself, "We live in two completely different worlds. I can't believe she just spoke to me." But in reality, their situations mirror each other and they actually have a lot in common, even if at first it doesn't appear so. When it comes to Gojo, story editor and scriptwriter for the anime, Yoriko Tomita, had this to say about him.
I doubt I'm the only one that feels this way, but I think Wakana is the ideal man, and it's only natural that Marin would fall for him. He's kind, he doesn't say tactless things, and he's incredibly considerate.
That's another part of the story that kind of needs to be it's not complete talking about this series without talking about like Gojo himself is kind of like the fucking dream boy. Like there's a lot of fan service for people who are into men for the story. Like there's not. Again, it's what I said at the beginning of the story, where this is a story. This services all of its fans. Like it's not just servicing men or people attracted to women. It's servicing everyone, and from many multiple different angles at the same time too.
Goals he's working toward, which make you want to cheer him on. He does occasionally make pessimistic assumptions, but he always speaks up about them eventually, so they rarely lead to trouble. He's also able to pick up on what people who share his mindset are feeling and help them out, like he did with Shinju. He's exactly the sort of person I'd love to have around, and since I'd be able to rest easy if I had someone like him by my side, I took great care to make the viewers feel the same way.
Gojo Wakana is respectful, shy, and supportive, not your typical pervy protagonist. However, Gojo is a teenage boy, so of course he has his fantasies and often gets flustered by Marin's body, but he never touches her without her consent and is very apologetic when accidents do happen.
Breathe. Concentrate. And whatever you do, do not actually touch Kitagawa.
I love the horror
Gojo
style
also
music.
never puts the onus on Marin whenever he gets flustered. He actually beats himself up for it and calls himself pathetic.
I didn't mean to interrupt you while you were changing.
No, that's fine, but you good? Stomachache or?
No, I'm completely fine. Please don't worry. It's literally just a bathing suit. I'm so pathetic.
He treats her as a human being and often puts his personal feelings aside to support her cosplay endeavors, showing a very selfless, masculine side of himself when doing so. Much like how many ecchi are designed for the viewer to project onto the male MC, it's completely flipped on its head here. It's not hard to believe that female viewers see themselves as Marin and imagine a relationship with Gojo, who is basically the perfect boyfriend. It's obvious that many women are drawn to his gentle masculinity and emotional intelligence.
Ta-da! I wore a bathing suit.
It's not really accurate to boil down the ecchi genre to only represent anime and manga that are sloppy or poorly written simply because they happen to contain sexual content. Just because the sexual content may seem juvenile or tasteless to some, it doesn't necessarily taint the story as a whole solely for having fan service within it. While there are plenty of trashy ecchi shows that are pretty much just goon slop for teenage boys.
To be fair, DxD, High School DxD, it's kind of not a trashy harem or ecchi anime. I mean, yeah, it is one of the most famously shameless ones, but I mean, anyone who's gotten the story knows that it's many things, including being ecchi, but like it's a pretty impressively world-built story that like synthesizes like basically most world religions into a fairly complex and intricate kind of like magic system, which is crazy. I mean, I've never gotten too into it, but I mean, from what I've heard and what I've seen, the story, like there's a lot going on there, and ecchi is just kind of one of the things there. Probably, I mean, it's definitely, I think probably on purpose, the ecchi is certainly the face of it, like that's the selling point of it, but I mean, it's one of those stories where like that's what brings you in through the front door, but then what keeps you seated at the restaurant of the anime is more than just that.
To crank it to, there are also classic anime and manga that are highly regarded within the ecchi genre alongside the kinda stupid ones. In other words, not all ecchi are created equal, and I believe—
Yeah, I mean, it's just another genre. Man, like all other genres, they have, I mean, what's that quote about, like 80% of all media is crap, so I mean, definitely applies to ecchi. I mean, I guess some might say it's, in the case of ecchi, it's 100%, but those people probably haven't read a lot of or consumed a lot of ecchi, so I mean, I wouldn't give their opinion much weight.
This is a key component in My Dress Up Darling's success. Something I really like about Marin and Gojo's dynamic is how it kind of feels like a role reversal to the typical hot-headed boy and meek, shy girl couple. In a different ecchi show, maybe Gojo would be the one leading their relationship and being more assertive, while Marin struggles with her.
Traditionally, what it would be is that it'd be like like 1 or 2 seasons of accidental panty shots and like walk-ins in the shower or whatnot, and like the main MC not really making any honest moves. I mean, yeah, there'd probably be lots of like peeping or like fantasies or like other kinds of like just abortive attempts at like honestly, like sexual assault, and then the female MC would be very what's the word, like pining very ineffectually after the MC, and then maybe at like the end of season 1 or even season 2, you get like a kiss or like a hand holding sort of thing. That's the sort of stereotypical imagining of a traditional romance anime for like a lot of us Western anime fans who've been traumatized by years, by decades at this point of just things that call themselves romance anime but really are anything but.
Self be the one leading their relationship and being more assertive, while Marin struggles with her self-confidence. But no, here it's the complete opposite. Marin takes control of virtually every scene she's in. She's the one showing off her body, and Gojo is the one freaking out because of it. Instead of an anime girl and an ecchi going kya when the MC cops a feel, Gojo is the one going kya whenever Marin
Yes.
does well.
It is interesting though, because in recent years, it has definitely this specific dynamic has certainly become more common, I think. I mean, there's like Dangers in My Heart, for example. Obviously, the Nagatoro anime is also a good example of this. I mean, I think teasing Nagatoro was like one of the original ones back in like the before times of the late 2010s, as well as some other teasing heroine romances. But yeah, it's definitely. I don't know. I don't know if it's become more common. Certainly, there have been lots of high-profile examples of it recently. So. They're definitely breath of fresh air for a lot of us.
Because the series is about cosplay, it makes sense we would be seeing a lot of Marin's body.
Yes.
And paired with her outgoing and unashamed...
Actually, yeah, that's actually a... Because I did bring up how the story being very... having a lot of respect and clear expertise and knowledge in the cosplay industry, whatever, really, endeared it to the cosplayer community, a big part of the anime community itself. But, I mean, I didn't actually think about how it being about cosplay and things like that would really give it a very diegetic reason to have lots of what is typically, written off as fan service, lots of in-universe reasons to highlight the physicality and like the measurements of the characters' bodies. Something, this is a, in the fan service versus anti-fan service discourse, there is always this argument about, is fan service ever justified? And usually, when that part of the discussion comes up, people usually will say things like, well, as long as it's, as long as it's, I guess, diegetic, as long as it's justified by character motivation and action, then, it's fine. Even if it might be a begrudging fine, it's fine. And this is like that idea, but like made into the anime, basically. Like the whole story is kind of taking advantage of that idea. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but yeah.
Personality, it makes sense that we'd get to see a lot of her body. The fan service moments feel diegetic.
Yeah.
They don't really take me out of the show or make me feel like I'm intruding on this.
Yeah, that take me out of the show phrase is like, it's. Yeah, I mean, it's basically you do a drinking game where it's like how quickly are you going to hear that phrase when any discussions with fan service come up? Like, I mean, as an artist myself who makes a lot of art, I am typically taken out of pretty much anything I read or watch or play, since I'm always there's always part of that creator's brain kind of analyzing the art from the perspective of a fellow producer rather than just a consumer. So I've never really been able to relate to this idea of well, fan service specifically, but any other thing taking you out of a story being a bad thing. Because for me, that's just how I experience stories in the first place. Like I don't really. It's hard for me to even imagine consuming a story and not being quote unquote taken out of it. But yeah, neither here nor there.
They don't really take me out of the show or make me feel like I'm intruding on this fictional character by watching. Marin's love of cosplay is totally contagious, and the fan service scenes where she's cosplaying feel celebratory of the hobby rather than exploitative.
Yep.
Marin loves the female form as shown by her Shizuku addiction, and when she shows off her body, you can feel the pure confidence she exudes. Marin pretty much only gets embarrassed when it comes to her feelings towards Gojo, like when she realizes he thinks she's beautiful, a word that he purposely doesn't use very often.
北川さん、とても綺麗でした。俺にとって綺麗は特別なものに対する言葉になって、心から思った時でないと言えないと言いますか。
Man's out here rizzing her just on accident.
I will say, amongst the shower of praise I'm releasing onto this show, there's one type of fan service in My Dress Up Darling that I absolutely hate.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Inui. Now, I don't think Juju is a horrible character. She's alright, and she has her appeal. However, the scene where Gojo walks in on her in the shower and sees everything is very, very tasteless in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, that is definitely, from what I've seen or heard, I guess that is the one example of this sort of classic, quote unquote, fan services. Everyone knows and hates. Everyone knows and loves to hate. So I'm not surprised that was it Mimi Love? Was expressing, Mimi Yori is expressing, distaste for it. I mean, certainly, if you've been in the anime space long enough, you kind of get used to it, whether you want to or not. So it's kind of, but yeah.
I feel dirty even watching that part, along with the scene where we get an up.
Oh my lord, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that feels very non-diegetic, I guess you could say. That feels very much like it's like a fucking wink and a nod to the audience, rather than something happening in the story.
It totally just feels like audience voyeurism, not the diegetic cosplay fan service that the show usually offers.
ねえねえ、それなんとかってアニメのやつ？超オタクじゃん。ないわ。
Cosplay, despite being something that anyone can participate
she's cosplaying
in,
as
is predominantly a female
Marin.
hobby. There are multiple reasons for this, like how women are expected to learn makeup for daily life, so learning cosplay makeup isn't a very big stretch. How women cosplaying men is totally normal and accepted, while men cosplaying female characters is still very taboo and frowned upon. Like how women tend to know more about hairstyling, so taking care of wigs and adjusting them to their needs is also less of a hurdle. Obviously, this isn't the case for...
Another thing to bring up is also just, I mean, I guess it depends on the series, but I mean, certainly the broad majority of them, a lot of the female characters, they tend to have more interesting... get-ups than their male counterparts. Like, it's just across the board, male fashion tends to be just a lot more boring, and there's apparently deep social historical reasons behind that, but I don't remember the specifics, so I'm not gonna try to poorly recount those details, but yeah.
All women. I like to cosplay sometimes, and I'm pretty shit at all of the skills involved, but I think you understand
this looks like a good cosplay.
Overall, cosplay is a female-centric hobby, and My Dress Up Darling...
I mean, This woman is very
treats
brave.
this hobby with the utmost care and respect. There are scenes for every single step of a homemade cosplayer's journey, whether it be mapping out your design, picking out fabrics, choosing a suitable wig to style, eye tapes, face tapes, specific makeup looks for your character's personality. There's a scene where Gojo explains how to wash your wig after use, which is a very helpful tip for anyone new to cosplaying or interested in the craft.
Yeah, it's a common, I mean, that's not an uncommon thing for like anime to do, where they basically take one kind of hobby or interest and, I mean, just go all in on the nitty gritty details. Like there's that recent anime about gems and mining, which, I mean, was written by a miner, I don't know, a gemstone collector or whatever. And I mean, like all of the mineralogists basically of the world descended upon that story, like the fucking mass production Avas on on Asuka back in the end of Ava. But yeah, it's a common, that's not uncommon. I mean, honestly, you could probably call it a genre unto itself within the Japanese media sphere, and maybe just anime and manga specifically. But I mean, it's a thing that exists already, and it was applied for the first time to cosplay, which that's important because of the aforementioned sort of prominence that cosplayers have within the anime community.
あとは水をかいてお支払いをし、タオルで挟んで水気を切り、最後に陰干しにして終わりです。
なんだ、超余裕。
Not only that, the show even talks about the process of taking photos and doing touch-ups.
I love this camera because you don't have to change the lens for effects or different lighting.
That's interesting. But when would you switch out the lens?
It really depends on what you're going for. It's fun to experiment. Each lens makes it look totally different even when it's the same shot.
My Dress Up Darling treats cosplaying and cosplayers with
Actually,
so
yeah, let me look at that. As an artist, as a illustrator, right? This is matching these things to the name is kind of important. I mean, I know about fisheye lens with telephoto, and that's one I don't hear a lot of, even though I've seen that effect done many times before. But yeah.
It's the same shot.
My Dress Up Darling treats cosplaying and cosplayers with so much love, care, and reverence, so of course women, the primary cosplayers of the world, would be drawn to this show. When I asked Marine _Wakana, another My Dress Up Darling focused account on Twitter, if she thought the series handled the art of cosplay well as a cosplayer herself, she wrote, in my opinion, the anime and manga do it perfectly. The mangaka really did her research and asked the right people. The makeup, wigs, and costumes are also detailed, and also the conventions capture everything so well. Even though not all of us have a Gojo, we can buy or try to make our own cosplays, and it's pretty much the same process. Gojo takes it too far sometimes, he's a perfectionist. When I saw Marin cosplay, it made me want to do it too, and it was the best decision ever. Seeing others cosplay can give you the inspiration to try it out for yourself and discover a new passion. This happens to one such character in the series, Shinju Inui. Shinju is a bit of a difficult character to talk about because I find her both interesting and terrible at the same time. I really don't like how hard the show focuses on a middle schooler's chest size, but I also appreciated exploring the difficulties women with larger busts have when cosplaying certain characters, like men.
That's a diegetic reason to focus on the bust size, and if there weren't those very concerning like panty shots from earlier, I think there could be a lot of interesting things to say about like a middle schooler with this fucking outsized bust. And I've heard many experiences from women who had to go through that experience where sometimes people's bodies it's kind of hit puberty. Some people's bodies get hit by puberty like a damn truck, and those are I don't know, those experiences. How to phrase it? It'd be kind of a shame to not explore those experiences just because of the very earned distrust that people have towards anime because of just years of fucking exploitative panty shots and shower walking scenes and all that.
Revolves around her being afraid to cosplay her favorite character, a boy, because she's worried her body type won't fit, and that her cosplay attempt would ultimately disappoint her sister, Juju. However, Gojo supports her dream of cosplaying the character and helps her in every step of the process, including buying a chest binder. Shinju's mini arc really shows the endless possibility of cosplay and complements Juju's arc of fulfilling the dreams you thought were impossible through the art of cosplaying. No matter what body type, what gender, what age, as long as you enjoy giving life to your favorite character, it's a great cosplay. This is a message that we see conveyed throughout My Dress Up Darling, a wonderful message that I'm sure many viewers appreciated, men and women alike. Cosplaying and being an otaku in general can be ostracizing, even in Japan, where you might think it's commonplace. While it is common to have a passing interest in some TV anime like One Piece, or even keep up with the latest Shonen Jump mag, if you're an actual hardcore otaku who spends most of your time watching anime, going to conventions, and cosplaying, you will most likely be judged, even in the birthplace of the medium, Japan.
I mean, the very term itself, otaku, I think it's changed now in Japan, but I mean, it was originally basically like a slur almost, and it was pretty much this weird kind of process of the Western, or really just the global anime fan base sort of taking that term on as like a at times begrudging, but mostly a term of endearment. Then came back to Japan and kind of sort of watered down the meaning, and I think in some cases made it something sort of like the global conception of what an otaku is. But I mean, that moment we saw that Ikemen kid basically insulting Marin's like was it a keychain or accessory for being anime. Like I heard him literally say the word otaku. Like the sub was translated as nerd, but he did say otaku. And I mean, the way Marin reacted, it's clear that the word still has this negative association, especially when spoken by a fucking normie like that. But yeah.
Cosplay in particular can be quite tricky to navigate due to the much stricter culture of IP and copyright protections in Japan.
Oh, yes,
You basically shouldn't cosplay outside unless you were at a very specific sanctioned anime event.
I had not considered the intersection between those two, using the draconian Japanese copyright laws, and then how that would affect, just cosplay's not accessibility, but like where it can be done.
This notion, you could be hit with some very violent vitriol, such as one particular Marcel cosplayer. This happened to the Japanese cosplayer Shikano Tsuno, who attended the Osaka Expo as the elf after reading up on the official rules of the event, which didn't forbid cosplay. Osaka Expo is primarily an event focusing on various countries showcasing technological and cultural contributions, so not really a pop culture or otaku.
Right. I'm sorry, I'm not listening to what Mimiyori's saying, but like, I'm just looking at these are like 3D models that are all walking and shit. Maybe they're using like a preset walk animation, but like holy moly, like this is a full ass crowd. Like I'm just imagining the like time and effort it took to like put this together.
Technological and cultural contribution.
There's me getting pulled out of the experience because I'm just too busy analyzing the production of the experience. But
so not really a pop culture or otaku event. Even so, Tsuno wanted to be Marcel, and the rules allowed cosplay. After exercising her free will by becoming Marcel at the expo and recording her journey on her note blog, she received thousands of hate comments and even some death threats. Jay Allen, the writer of the Unseen Japan article where I found this information, wrote, "Some social media users lit into her for sullying the image of Marcel by attending a non-otaku event in cosplay. People called her trash. Some even leaked personal information about her, such as the name.
You know, whenever I see stuff like this, well, like, you know, this social media style backlash, I might, you know, my first response is always, you know, just ignore this shit. But then, you know, once they start doxing you and start, you know, leaking your personal information like that, then it's kind of, how do you deal with that? Like,
name of the train station close to where she lives, resulting in her seeking advice from police. Basically, cosplaying outside of what is seen as a socially acceptable place to do it can get you into some pretty hot water in Japan.
Yeah, well,
Nevertheless,
not surprising
Marin's
for Japan.
bubbly, carefree, yet assertive personality allows her to navigate being popular and well-liked despite her more nerdy interests, such as anime and cosplay. Mari never cares what others think of her, and she never backs down when it comes to something she loves. Her ability to be both popular and a nerd at heart, yet still super down-to-earth and kind, makes her an easy character to idolize, especially for female anime fans. Have you ever been in this situation?
Oh man, I sure wish I could watch more Mimiori videos, but the ones on her channel aren't enough.
Or even, boy, I have so
watch
much
all
extra
the
money
Mimiori
lying around.
videos.
I sure do wish I could give a little bit of it a month to a weird blue swirly glasses freak so that she can continue making epic content about my favorite Japanese animes. If so, I have the perfect deal for you. At the lowest tier of the Mimiori Patreon, $3 per month. I know you can scrounge around in your couch for that change. You get all Mimiori videos at least a week before they premiere on YouTube. Plus, your name will appear at the end of all my future videos.
Not
only that,
the
if a
Mimiori
YouTube video
Wojak.
gets taken down by Aniplex, I will upload it to Patreon as well. Like this Monica video that totally didn't get me 500 million hate comments. Plus, you get access to my private Discord server. Ooh, we play Mudai in it. Ooh. If you're extra generous and can spare $10 or more a month, I make custom stickers and send them out to you, like these. And even if you don't want to commit, just like my ex-wife, you don't have to. You can simply make a one-time...
Why is he putting up boomer humor for this ad? Like, you trying to get the boomer audience?
purchase of my early videos for $3, no strings attached. So please check out my Patreon and join as a free member. That way, if I release a video that looks particularly interesting, you can buy it in the future to support me. If you can't afford to join my Patreon as a paid member, the best way to support me is liking this video and subscribing here on YouTube. Okay, back to the...
As an unemployed person, I won't be doing it. I won't be what's the word, patronizing any new people for the time being. But certainly, as he said, if you have $3 scrounge up, send some away. I mean, I've seen other videos of Mimiori's, and he seems like a cool person. So I don't see why not to support him. But,
the video. If you've spent any time on Coquette or Kawaii Twitter/Tumblr, you've seen someone with a Marin icon. Marin is an undeniable mascot of kogyaru, kawaii fashion, cosplay, and many other feminine interests online. It's crazy because despite being an ecchi series, Marin has almost become a sort of feminist icon in online spaces. I asked a popular animanga-centered Twitter account, Milk, at Milky Noe, who often posts about My Dress Up Darling, why she thinks Marin is such a popular character among women in the anime sphere. This was her reply. I'd say Marin is popular among women in the animanga community due to her near universal relatability. Whether it's her passion for her special interests, her versatile fashion sense, her ideals, or even her experience in love with Wakana, Marin is a character anyone can relate to in some way, and I think that's the reason she's loved. Her design is also incredibly cute, so she appeals to my love for cuteness. In terms of the aesthetic appeal of My Dress Up Darling other than Marin herself, I think the way the show looks overall is a huge factor in its popularity. Cloverworks did such a wonderful job adapting the look and feel of the manga into animation.
Even the manga is gorgeous. So, being able to capture even a fraction of that would already go a long way in endearing you to I mean, like, I'm like, yeah, I've been talking about the cosplay contingent. I mean, apparently we also got the Kogaru contingent. I mean, the Sakuga people, oh my lord. The Sakuga people definitely go crazy, especially for the body jiggles. I mean, you know, I guess I am a bit of a Sakuga aficionado myself. So, I mean, I definitely see and appreciate how these animators, how lovingly they craft like the fucking recoil of some of these body parts. But yeah.
The warm, vibrant colors give such a romantic flavor to each and every scene. The details the animators were able to capture with Marin's eyes, earrings, strands of hair, and intricate details of her cosplays is nothing short of awe-inspiring. There's one scene in particular that really grabbed my attention during the anime. It's during episode 3 after Marin drags Gojo along on a cosplay shopping spree and they're walking home together. The scene is dazzling, and again, while I was reading through the fanbook, saw that Marin's Japanese voice actress, Hina Sukuta, talks about it during her interview. She says,
"Besides the ocean scene, there was the scene in episode 3 where Marin is thanking Gojo-kun on the pedestrian bridge on their way home from Yuzawaya, and a car's headlights gradually illuminate her face. That made me feel like I was watching a drama. This may be an anime, but it's not very fantastical. What it depicts is a true-to-life relationship between two people. I wanted to make that realism come through in my acting as well, so I kept it in mind whenever I shared a scene with Shoyo Ishige."
Truly, My Dress-Up Darling is a very grounded, authentic series, not only with how it depicts cosplay, but how it depicts romance. Each character's motivations, virtues, and flaws all come together to convey realistic representations of people you can meet in your daily life. Like Suguta said, the anime comes very close to emulating something like a live-action TV drama at points, despite some of the more comedic scenes the show offers. Besides how much I like the opening, I have to say, My Dress-Up Darling's ending song, Koi no Yukue, by Akari Akase, is by far one of my favorite anime ending sequences of all time. Every single thing about this ending
looks cute as hell.
cuteness right down to the minute details. The simple, chibi art style with adorable animations, Gojo and Marin wearing a combination of space cadet helmets that also bring to mind underwater sea divers, the hearts with the Saturn-like rings, little octopi with antennae on them hammer home this space and ocean mashing together theming. The ocean is important for both Gojo and Marin, so it's easy to see how that's relevant, but I also like how it's combined with outer space. Both the ocean and outer space are uncharted territory, mysterious. Gojo has very little experience outside.
There's also a bit of imagery around like being like space cadets, which is normally it's kind of an insult to call someone a space cadet, but when two space cadets get together and can like sort of appreciate each other and their space cadetry, I mean, like, you know, what is that if not the kind of ideal form of like love, you know, being able to gush about your interests with another person like that.
Like how it's combined with outer space. Both the ocean and outer space are uncharted territory, mysterious. Gojo has very little experience outside his small bubble of the world, but Marin introduces him to so many new things, just like an astronaut discovering the moon or a diver uncovering a new species of fish. The song itself, no Yukue, translates to the whereabouts of my love, or maybe where my love is. So, like I said, the sea and space theme is representing the discovery of something new. I think the visual style of this ending is particularly attractive to women. It almost brings to mind the cuteness of characters from a mascot company like Sanrio or San-X. Besides the opening and ending being super catchy, wonderful songs, I also want to mention some of the OST. The original score for My Dress-Up Darling is fantastic and breathes life into every scene. I think it's a super underrated soundtrack, so I want to highlight some of my favorite songs used. This track in specific caught my attention. It's called Chikara ni Naritai, which basically translates to wanna be close to you. It feels very fluffy and shoujo-esque, even though I know that shoujo is more of a demographic than a genre. What I mean to say is it gives off very romantic vibes, like a song that plays when you fall in love. This track, Arigato, is also very emotional, and the jazzy rhythm brings to mind bouquet lights and the warm happiness of a fun date. The background music of this show is insanely good, and it wasn't until my second watch through that I started really noticing it.
I mean, I'm definitely...
Since I can't really sew, the only way I can help is by emptying my wallet, right?
No, that's not true.
Anyway, this meat roll is giving me life right now.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big OST head, so I mean, yeah, hearing that music, it does sound real good. Like, and definitely probably should actually check out My Dress Up Darling. It sounds like on every level of the production, it was just like a masterclass.
Dress Up Darling features a strong, assertive, but still girly female lead who knows what she wants and chases after it no matter what. Combined with an incredibly likable, non-creepy, masculine, kind, and genuine male protagonist, it's no wonder why women flock to this series. The fan service moments are in character and mostly diegetic, meaning you aren't taken out of the show when watching. When I asked Milk what the appeal of My Dress Up Darling was in her own words, she replied, "For me, there's two main things that appeal to me. First and foremost, I find the dynamic and love story of Wakana and Marin incredibly endearing and cute. Specifically, how they end up bringing the best out of each other, especially later in the series past what the anime has covered. Secondly, I find the main theme of the series, that your passions shouldn't be something to be ashamed of no matter what, to be incredibly profound." I really couldn't have said it better myself. Not being ashamed of who you are and what you love is such a huge aspect of the show, and the reason why Marin is so great at helping Gojo heal from his past. Marin Wakana on Twitter said something similar in response, writing, "The appeal of My Dress Up Darling for me is mostly the importance of your hobbies, the things you like. It's really important to enjoy the activities that make your heart happy. For Gojo, it's Hina dolls, and for Marin, it's cosplay. They accept each other's hobbies and don't question it, they even help each other. The first episode is crucial to this, with Marin saying that you should say what's on your mind, or that it doesn't matter being a boy or a girl if you like something. Also, it depicts a really good relationship that gets even better further into the manga. So, anime watchers, you are in for a ride if you enjoyed the first season, cause it only gets better." My plan for this video has been to release it on YouTube the same day as Season 2 Episode 1 of My Dress Up Darling comes out, so that if you've never seen the show, you can quickly catch up and join in on the fun watching it weekly with everyone else. If you've been on the fence about checking out this unlikely female phenomenon in anime, I really implore you to just give it a try. I'm sure you'll find at least one thing to love about it. Do you love My Dress Up Darling? What drew you in? Drop your thoughts below and make sure to like this video so I can make more anime content just like this. Thanks so much to the people who made this video happen, namely, all the Twitter users who blessed me with their responses to my interview questions. Please go and follow Milk, Marin Wakana, and Evie. All of them are so lovely. Additionally, She Says from Boundary Break, Absol Blogs Pokemon, and my friend Liz all helped me out by providing voices for some of the interview sections, so a huge shout out to them as well. Links to all of these incredible people will be provided in the description. Thank you so much to Dylan for editing as always, these videos wouldn't be possible without you. And thank you so much for watching the whole video. If you haven't clicked off yet, write Omurice in the comments so I know you're a
I might not. I'll consider doing that, but yes. It was my pleasure to watch the video. It was a really good video. I mean, I mentioned I've seen Mimi Yori's videos before. I watched her 100 Girlfriends video. That was also a really good one. I mean, yeah, definitely having seen all these little bits and pieces of the anime, like it really does seem like My Dress Up Darling is just a master class in basically all, not even just all the fundamentals of anime or storytelling, but like even a lot of the niches, all these niche interests and groups. I mean, it's kind of like a modern day classic, like instant classic kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, if you're obviously if you're a cosplay fan, if you're a Sakuga fan, I mean, hell, even if you're just a gooner, like just, I mean, there's that that for you. Like it really, there is something for everyone. So it's kind of not surprising that it's become a bit of a phenomenon, but yeah, didn't have too much in the way of notes, but just kind of, this little idea that I have heard before, but it does seem like My Diss of Darling is really evidencing it. But this idea that people don't really hate fan service itself, rather they hate when a specific group is being serviced at the expense of everyone else. And kind of unfortunately, a lot of people tend to take the instead of taking the other tack of being like, well, then make something for everyone. Make fan service for everyone. Rather, they tend to take the stance of, well, if I can't have fun, then no one can. That's kind of sad. It's like it'd be. Yeah, it's kind of sad because that means that you don't get stories like My Diss of Darling. Like the people who are so down on fan service, they want it to not exist at all. I mean, how do I phrase this? Because obviously those people who are so down on fan service, oftentimes they're not explicitly saying it, but they oftentimes what they really mean is just, I guess specifically ecchi fan service, but it's that's not, that's not in and of itself fan service. There's obviously many other types of fan service that we saw. The cosplay itself could be called cosplay fan service, and that is there's really no good definition of fan service you come up with where that wouldn't be included. And it's I guess now what I'm talking about is people being kind of lazy with their terms, basically. But basically the thrust of what I'm saying is that people should be demanding more inclusivity in their fan service rather than the total I guess abolition of it. But yeah, definitely Diss of Darling definitely seems like something that I would I really should get on. It's been fucking definitely 3 years, probably going on 4 years at this point, where it's been a bit of a mainstay in the anime community, and I've just been kind of doing my own thing and not really paying too much attention to it. But maybe I should get out of my hermit cove and actually check it out. Yeah, great video. Definitely enjoyed it. Alright, that will be I guess what's the comedian time, the comedian phrase, that's my time. I'm gotta get off the stage. But definitely a good stream today. Had a lot to say, I think. Definitely feel like I've gotten better. After a month of doing it on an almost daily basis. I definitely gotten better at the react ending. I definitely gotten a little bit better finding or understanding what things I can comment on. Apparently, if I want to have a lot to say about something, just check out anything anime related. I'll have to keep that in mind. But yeah, closing out. What the hell? Why isn't that? Shouldn't be. Where's the? Let's see. Where did the backgrounds? Oh wait, it's because the tab isn't displayed. Anyway, yeah, there we go. So yeah, thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw, consider liking. If you have a comment regarding what you saw, consider commenting. And if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. And yeah, I'll be doing this again on Friday for the last time for the foreseeable future. I might come back to it later on, but yeah. Until then, take care.